Call this meeting to order. It's Monday, February 14th, 2022. It's 6 p.m. on the head. We are in the council chambers. The agenda has been posted. The media has been notified. Please call roll.
Christopher Fredrickson.
Here.
Thomas Barnett.
Here.
Andrew Larson.
Here.
Carrie Michalowski.
Here.
Thomas Kelly.
Here.
Gerald Anderson.
Here.
David Holt.
Here.
Eileen Daniel.
Here.
Ryan Rossing.
Here. We have quorum to do business. All please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public comments as received by the public to the alderpersons. Tom Barnett.
I got this. My name is Anthony Wayne Stewart Fuller, and I would like to voice my support for ArtsRed offering consulting services, the introduction of regional skater artists, and the community engaged feasibility study that will incorporate creative placemaking. It is my firm belief that this will be needed and will help the community experience a creative planning process which may help remove stigma for some of the thought of a skate park being counterproductive to the youth in the area, and also to positively encourage others' input into the design.
Anybody else receive public comment from their constituents? All right, moving on to the list. Bill Freudenberg.
Okay. Bill Freudenberg, City of Rhinelander. I'd like to talk for a minute about under introduction of new business, item K, discuss presentation of fire department staffing options. I'm hoping that this includes the position of assistant fire chief as well. I know the last work study that took place, a lot of discussion, almost 3 hours work between the two departments. I'm just hoping that this goes forward. I'm hoping that this doesn't go into a stalemate situation, that we get an assistant fire chief's position here real quick. I'm hoping. And the other topic I wanted to bring up tonight was the PFAS situation that happened down in Wausau. We're shutting out all the wells. I understand, I know that you have PFAS meetings on Facebook, but you don't have updates on council meetings as far as what's taking place. And I really wish you would do this at these council meetings. Thank you.
Lauren Sackett.
First, I wanted to say a congratulations to the City of Rhinelander as well as Mayor Fredrickson for being nominated for our Chamber Awards. Congratulations on that. I'm sorry you didn't win. But what did win was the Rhinelander District Library won the Community Service Award, so I also wanted to say congratulations to them on that. On a quick DRI note, thank you to all of those that have participated in Taste of Chocolate. We officially did the grand prize drawing at about 3:30 this afternoon, but there is still chocolate available, 2-for-1 special at CT's for the remainder of the week, where you could still win other coupons and DRI bucks. But I also wanted to share a quick concern and a nonprofit leader perspective with you all regarding 9H on the agenda this evening. As you discuss fees for special events and event permits, especially as it pertains to nonprofits, I urge you to remember that organizations like the Chamber and DRI host events year after year with the goal of driving residents and visitors to our businesses and to our community. The two organizations I mentioned are certainly not the only ones that this could potentially affect, but the ones I can speak to. In turn, while participating at our events, people are patronizing local businesses, spending money locally, which impacts local sales tax collection, as well as, in many instances, the Pratt tax. And over the last several years that I've worked at the Chamber or been involved with DRI events, our events have not been required to pay those fees due to our nonprofit status. To show our appreciation for the city's work, we usually include them listed as an in-kind sponsor for the work that's required for street closures and barricading. And while the fees may not seem like a large sum, additional costs certainly affect our ability to host some of these events. So please consider that as you look at your fee schedule and how they'll affect our local events and organizations.
Thank you. Amy Schmitz.
Good evening. I'm Amy Schmitz. I'm an involved and concerned community member, but I'm also the wife of Fire Department Deputy Chief Josh Schmitz. I'm voicing the importance of voting to bring back the assistant chief position to the Rhinelander Fire Department. I feel like my perspective is important to hear tonight. I want progress for Rhinelander. The leadership and services our fire department provides needs to align with progress. The assistant chief leading the ambulance services for the fire department means the deputy chief can go back to doing their own important jobs. It means there is the assistance of a firefighter and a leader during fires. The emergency medical services are busy and getting busier in the city of Rhinelander. It is essential to have the assistant chief position that can dedicate the necessary time to maintain, but also continue to improve and build these services. Not having an assistant chief will cost Rhinelander. Homeowners insurance increases when the fire protection class decreases. Industry is also greatly affected by this insurance increase. Rhinelander not having an assistant fire chief directly affects the city's fire protection class. Rhinelander needs to bring back the assistant chief in order to maintain its current ISO rating. For Rhinelander to grow, it needs to invest in what Rhinelander already has. Rhinelander is an attractive area to retire, but not if we don't have high quality EMS services. In order to attract new families to our community, we need to prove that Rhinelander invests in its future and provides excellent protective services. Businesses and industry build and stay in Rhinelander when families want to be here. Many of you already know that I was recently in an accident and utilized EMS when I broke my neck and back. I never thought I would be the one in the position to need emergency care. I don't think most of us think we will ever be that person, or even a family member would need an ambulance. It happens, and to many of us. When that time comes, don't you want to know that the paramedics taking care of you or a loved one are well-trained, well-led, and well-supported by their community? Voting to reinstall an assistant chief to the fire department is vital to Rhinelander. It's vital to the fire department, it's vital to the families and businesses that live here, and it's vital to the future of Rhinelander.
Anthony. I'm not even going to try again. Gaudioso? Gaudioso. All right. I will try again.
Respect for that as well.
Good evening, respected alderpersons and Mayor of Rhinelander, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. My name is Anthony Gaudioso, citizen of Rhinelander and president of the Over organization in Rhinelander. Over its mission is to bring new and positive means for youth development to the Northwoods community, primarily through action sports culture. A main goal of ours is to see the construction of a youth plaza to include a skate park here in Rhinelander. We are excited to embrace the opportunity to learn from creative mentors and encourage the youth in our community to join us in this journey. We will serve on the future steering committee to ensure the youth voice is heard, and we will continue our monthly organizational meetings. We plan to research what it takes to become a viable organization and what the need is for our organization in our community. We will recruit volunteers and better organize ourselves so we can continue as a key partner in the future phases of this project. We have a wonderful opportunity in front of us here tonight. Excuse me. We have a wonderful opportunity in front of us here tonight. This could change the future of Rhinelander and change the quality of our life for our youth living in a rural community. The Over It group is excited for the community to learn from this creative process and for the opportunity to collaborate with strong partners and move this project forward. I'm so proud to be a part of this mission with Over It, and we're grateful to be working with so many amazing partners and having the City Council's support. Thank you for hearing us, and thank you everybody again for being here tonight.
Jaden?
Hello. As Vice President of Over It, I want to formally thank everyone that has helped us on our way to come to how much success we have brought to our to everyone in our group. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous and I didn't prepare, but I feel like I had to come up and at least say something to you guys. Thank you so much.
Mayor's comments. I have a proclamation here. Can I have Staff Sergeant Jacob Gertz stand up? Just right there. Whereas Staff Sergeant Jacob Gertz assisted 40 Northwoods residents in joining the Air Force, was a top 3 recruiter in the state of Wisconsin. And whereas Staff Sergeant Jacob Gertis educated students at 17 different schools in the Northwoods about Air Force opportunities and presented $1,000 worth of scholarship money to those schools. And whereas Staff Sergeant Jacob Gertis helped 4 special warfare applicants join the Air Force, leading to a #1 special warfare flight in Air Force recruiting squadron. And whereas Staff Sergeant Jacob Gertis volunteered 100+ hours with the community and helped with Habitat for Humanity to build houses for those in need in northern Wisconsin. Whereas Staff Sergeant Jacob Gertis led the honor guard ceremonies at the Milwaukee Brewers and the Milwaukee Bucks game and displayed the greatness of the individuals of the Northwoods. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Chris Frederickson, Mayor of the City of Rhinelander, do hereby proclaim the distinctive accomplishments of Staff Sergeant Jacob Gertis and how he reflects great credit upon himself and our community. I do by my hand set the seal, Rhinelander, be affixed to the 14th day of February, 2022. Thank you. And now to save your time, you don't have to stay for the rest. Yeah. Also, at this point, I would like to announce that our city clerk is retiring. As you can see, there are two people sitting at her desk today, one of which is Austin, who will torture from this point on as the intern. But Teresa is decided to retire, move on, and spend some more time with her grandchildren. But I'd also like to stand and give her a round of applause for the time she put here. Speech. She won't do the speech, and I don't dare push her. Trust me. Very few things I've learned in the time I've been here. All right, moving on. Approval of the meeting minutes from January 24, 2022. I'll accept a motion.
Daniel, make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of January 24th, 2022 as presented.
Holt, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Reports from boards, commissions, and committees. The report from the January 11th, 2022 Tree Board.
I move to accept the report of the January 11th Tree Board meeting.
We have a motion
Holt, second.
and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Unfinished business from previous council meetings. Discuss and approve a contract with Rhinelanders Little League. The contract's in your packet this evening. This is the next 5-year agreement. Myself, as well as Jeremy, representing Parks, did speak with the officers of the Rhinelander Little League organization on a number of occasions, clarified some duties and responsibilities that have changed or evolved since the writing of the last agreement, and you'll see that again, as I say, in the packet. Happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure if there's anybody specifically here tonight wanting to address the group, but perhaps there might be somebody if, well, we had public comment, I guess, already. Tom?
I was reading over the contract and noticed that the price remains the same, and I reached out to one of the people in charge with Little League, and they said that this was due to the frequency of the mowing that's going to be happening. My curiosity is that nowhere in the contract does it say how often the mowing is going to happen. So I'd like to see that put into this contract before anybody signs off on it. Like even if it means the mowing will be done Monday, Wednesday, Friday kind of thing. I want to see the frequency that's actually going to be in there, in writing.
The one thing I would state to that effect is in the fields of use, I think it's that section, the organization shall have the exclusive right, but they're going to provide, sorry, it's in the paragraph or the sentence before, that they'll be providing the schedule of games and practices before the start of the season. And in that section that you just referred to, the city is agreeing to prep the fields prior to games and will consist of dragging the fields, painting the foul lines, and mowing. And for employee said time of maintenance and upkeep. So I would just encourage you, because their game frequency may change, that you, if you're going to connect those two, that it speak to the schedule that's provided to the city versus days of the week.
Okay.
Then I would maybe ask Jeremy if he has any further concerns. Jeremy's back there.
So does the
It's actually addressed to, I'm sorry, in the second paragraph there, the timing and number of maintenance events shall be the responsibility of the organization to arrange with the Parks Department. So we're assuming that based upon a set number of games, that the cost, that's the general cost. Now, we do mow it outside of that rotation based upon the schedule that Hood Park has maintained according to Jeremy and my understanding, but that's the cost of prepping the fields for those specific events.
But we're no longer going to provide the chalk and the lines in the infield, correct?
Correct. That's right. And it's my understanding the city hadn't been providing that for some time. I don't know how long that period of time has been, but hadn't been doing so. And the previous statement actually in there was they were going to charge them for that actual cost. So the 1382 or the flat fee did not include the material costs, and that's what the strike through says.
Right.
Can I ask Jeremy to step up to the mic? I have a quick question for you. Is this mowing consistent with the way it's been done in the past, and has that worked?
Yep, everything's going to stay the exact same pretty much for Little League. We mow 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, regardless, just because the way it grows down there, right next to the lake. So we got to kind of stay up on that. And as far as the chalk goes, yeah, we've never, for Little League, we've never done that for them. They've always done their baselines and everything. We're going to continue striping the outfield grass. Since we mow it, then it's just as easy for us to go and put the white line back on there. But as far as games are concerned, and this goes for all the, once we start doing the Babe Ruth contracts in high school and girls softball, we'll get into that a little bit more too. But sometimes we had the field all done and another team would come and practice and wipe it all out. And so we were just kind of spinning our wheels at that. So,
right. But the chalk has historically been provided by the city.
Not lately, no.
Not lately.
Nope. I'm trying to think of what's the group called? Diamond Club has usually bought that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I mean, maybe past 5 years ago, I'm sure, whoever was doing it could have been providing it, but.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Thank
for
you kindly.
clarification.
Gerald?
Just, it looks like a couple of words have been left out of paragraph 2. seems like you want the word begin after shall in the first line, or something like that. And after 5 in the second line, I think it should be years.
Thinking, given those two updates, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with those corrections taken into consideration.
Anderson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I got a question. I got a clarification
Go ahead.
on your motion. Is that including just Gerald's corrections, or does that include we omitting the language that Tom talked about for Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays? I just, regarding that, I'm concerned. I mean, if it rains all day on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, I don't think anybody thinks it's prudent to be going out there and mowing on specific days, and I would hate that for that to be in a contract, that we would have to abide by that on a day such as that.
Yeah, my intention was to with all due respect, to simply have the wording considerations from Gerald, because Jeremy stated that this is not really a change from the way they do it, and I think that because of things like weather, they do need discretion. I think they can handle it. So,
Tom, you're okay with that as long as we?
Yeah, my intention was just to make sure that since we're not changing the fees on them, but we don't provide the chalk and all that, which I guess hasn't been done for the last 5 years, according to Jeremy, that it's just written in there so that it's like, legit, and there's no misunderstandings inside the contract.
Correct. I believe there are no misunderstandings at this point. Gerald?
So we can assume that that part that's crossed out in 3A will not appear in the final version?
Right, that was the last iteration of the agreement before they gave their concurrence, and I'm not sure how track changes got left on, but the idea would be that would be in fact struck. The idea by keeping it in there was if in fact it makes more sense for the city to buy it because we got a better deal or something, that we could, but the group felt more comfortable with that item being struck.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Well,
Just-
so the record's correct. You voted on Gerald's changes. Now you should vote on the amendment as adjusted by Gerald's changes. You can't amend.
I made a
over-
motion to include his. Would that be one single one?
There weren't two motions.
My initial motion was to accept.
So just so there's some understanding, your motion was to accept the document as written with Gerald's changes, then that's the first and only motion.
Yes.
Then it's fine.
All right.
Thank
If I
you.
may just add one final detail, the council may recall discussions last year about renovations at the field, and that'll be a separate item dealt with separately after we get a chance to circle back with that group.
Discuss and approve lease with Trinity Lutheran Church for the use of city property, RH 440.
The lease is pretty straightforward. If you're not familiar with the property that's identified in here, it's city-owned property between the police and fire departments on the northwest corner. They currently use it for parking, and they have been using it for parking, and this will be extending essentially or adding another lease in effect there.
Barnett, make a motion to approve a lease with Trinity Lutheran Church for the use of city property RH-440.
Larson, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Gerald?
Well, I had a question and an amendment, I guess. The question is paragraph 3C. Is there a lot of preparation that's going to have to be done by the city?
No new preparation. However, there are times where we do store snow there.
Yeah.
And that you have to do cleanup and that type of thing, maybe sweeping if it's, again, due to our use. But no, there isn't, we've baked in some general thought process that if there is some staff time, it's fairly minimal, but that was in the $840 a year use. And it's also based upon a rate of, and I didn't mention this in the last lease, but this is based upon the assessor's opinion of value, as well as their use is generally weekly, maybe twice a week, or there might be other holiday uses, but that's generally the frequency of their use. So that's where we arrived at the rate for this.
Okay, and I'd like to make an amendment then to the, in paragraph 4, the third line from the bottom, after the word which, there should be something in there. I would suggest after which put in it or they may incur.
Repeat what are the preceding words that you're speaking to?
Okay, so it would read which, it being the city, or they, the other people mentioned, may incur or have as a result.
Okay.
It seems like something missing there.
No, it's defining what a third-party claim is. It's not defining the city or the party. It's involving a third-party claim which may incur or have. So it's the claim that's defining. It's not a person or an entity.
Well,
That's what it means.
The meaning of the word.
If you change the meaning by adding the name it or they, you change the meaning of the paragraph. You understand that, correct?
No, because incur
I'm sorry,
applies
sir.
that somebody.
I'm sorry. What it says is if there's a third-party claim, which may incur, in other words, a claim that may be incurred or be had or have, we can rewrite the whole thing, but it's talking about the claim. Please understand that.
I'm just trying to be a little more grammatical, I believe.
It's not referring to a person or a thing. It's referring to a claim. I'm sorry. I don't want to change the meaning of the document. That's all.
Then don't use the word incur. How about if instead we made it say, which result from? No, you got result already in there. From these activities.
Excuse me, point of order. Can we just move past this? I mean, obviously Steve has our best interest.
We don't have a motion on the floor yet to even call a.
Point of order, all right.
Yeah.
Well, he made a motion, nobody seconded it.
We do have a motion? Okay.
I made the motion. And
actually, he made the motion with the amended
right, yeah.
part.
Right. But anyway, it's a word, and I don't feel like one word, and it doesn't change the meaning like Attorney Sorensen said. So I say we move past arguing over one word in the document, because it doesn't dramatically change anything.
Well, actually, the amendment that he's asking to make does change it dramatically, because it changes it from an occurrence that happened to a person or a place that it happened to, which are two separate issues. As it was written for the occurrence of possibly happening, not to a specific person or place. So it does have a fair amount of significance to that, if that is what Gerald would like to do, is change it to a person or place. What Attorney Sorensen is saying is, we're writing it for an occurrence to protect the city's behalf that way.
Correct. Well, we have a city attorney for a reason, and I trust his judgment in the wording, so I hope we can just move past this.
So we'll take a second on Gerald's motion, and if there is no second, then we know.
Yeah, I would like to make a different motion then.
Okay.
And have that read.
Wait a minute, before you go move on for parliamentary procedure, without a second, that motion fails. Go ahead.
Okay. To substitute, if we like the word occur, that would be better than incur. So, which may occur as a result of, is how I would like it to read. Delete the words may incur or have. I mean, not may. Delete the words incur or have and put in the word occur.
So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Motion fails. I'll accept the motion on the,
We already have a motion.
no, no.
The motion was made by
Yeah.
Tom
Oh,
Barnett.
sorry.
I don't know who seconded that.
Larson.
Larson? Okay. So we have a motion.
Thank you. Thank you for the correction. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Discuss update on IT consolidation project.
We've asked our consultant, Peggy, to come and give us some of the behind-the-scenes activities we've been coordinating and working on this project, so I'll turn it over to Peggy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Peggy Shower with Technology Management. The project is rolling along. One of the biggest obstacles we're running into is getting hardware deliveries. We can get equipment, but then we can't get power supplies, or we can get servers ordered, but we can't get these pieces. So right now, just the servers alone, there's about a 3 to 4 month turnaround. I'm hoping to have them here within the next month. What we did is we did a cost analysis of looking at, Zach had asked us to look at putting the servers out in the cloud compared to purchasing the 2 we had recommended for failover here. And it was very cost prohibitive. It would have cost the city over 20, 30 grand a month, and it's not something I'm comfortable with at all. We have migrated the civic, so the financial systems for the city of Rhinelander have all been migrated to the cloud. We took and we migrated Badger Tracks, which is for the police department, to the cloud. That's been done. That was both of those were done last November. The mail migration to a shared tenant where everybody's sharing the same Office 365 portal has been completed for Rhinelander City Hall, the PD, the fire department, and Rhinelander Utilities. We, under the insurance requirements this year to pass.
Can I ask a
insurance-
quick question?
Yep,
Sorry.
sure.
Is this the first time that all of us will be under the same server when it comes to our emails?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Major steps forward. We're making major steps, so. And then they're implementing a new .gov thing, and for us to be able to change over to that, it's gonna be a lot easier, and we're gonna be able to start sharing calendars, Zach wants to be able to do Teams. It's gonna be as we pull this all together, as it starts coming together. So we're getting the base setup done, and as much as Tara's been amazing, so she's saving the city tons of money. So we've been doing a train the trainer thing, so I will train her, or Logan or Lauren, and then she'll go ahead and implement. So she's been doing fantastic. And then if she needs my help, then I step in. We try to have meetings with our whole group, with Zach and with Tara and myself and my employees, and then we kind of lay out who's gonna do what. So she's been helping getting quotes and different things, and we got the rack equipment ordered, we got the electrical fixed. So we're gonna have one room that has all the server equipment in it, and everybody will be able to share it. We are going to have fiber going back to the fire department. So through this process, instead of everybody having to have their own firewall or their own servers or their own switches, or potentially on phase 2 or 3 phone systems, we can start consolidating everything. So that's what we're looking at doing. Things that have been purchased so far, like I said, we bought one server, and then we did this cost analysis, and we ended up getting the second server and sticking with the original plan because it was probably half the price of what it would have cost, and then we will have this failover redundancy. And then the NAS is the storage. We were able to get, we purchased one at first, and then we got our second one, which was our original proposal, to get that so that we have our storage for, now we have enough storage if we do decide to bring the video back, or if we're doing backup copies to what that does is that protects the city from any type of ransomware protection. So you can have what's called a read-only copy. And so we've got enough storage now, we'll be able to do all that, and a lot of rotating around. The switches have been purchased. What happened with those is they were purchased months ago, and the power supplies were backed up for 3 months. We now recently got all those in, and so we can start building all that. What I was talking about with the insurance requirements, everybody's going to be required to go to what's called 2-factor authentication, and you want to do this because right now with all the different people trying to break in, we rolled out a product. I want to try to get it down to one product, and we're using Duo, which is one of the highest recommended 2-factor authentication softwares right now. So we rolled that out at the city, and then we did the PD. And then because not everybody has personal cell phones, we did them with a hardware token key called a YubiKey. So at the PD, and that's working fantastic so far. So, And then for Office 365, the same thing. We can actually roll this into that. Right now, we turned on the two-factor authentication in Office 365, which everybody hates, but then it protects you at a whole nother level of security. Things that we have in progress right now is we're testing the backbone from Northwoods Connect from the PD back to here, and then also from the PD out to the internet, and what's the stability of it, and what's the speeds we're getting, and we got work to do yet, but we're coming along on that. We had Permar Security do a walkthrough. We're trying to get one system for everybody for security, not have 5 different systems. So we're working on getting quotes back on that. We had all new electrical ran in this room that can handle the new servers because we didn't have anything like that. And then we have a generator backup power coming to that rack. And then we have UPSs that'll be able to keep them up if there is power issues at all. We're working on the design and how everything's going to hook together and talk and who's going to be sharing what, and then kind of like a phased-in approach. So the way I look at something like this is over the course of 5 phases, what do we need now, what has to be ordered in each phase, and then when will we be implementing these things. The other thing, we still need to discuss our squad video, if we're going to do it on cloud or on premise. The way these servers were spec'd out is if we decide to bring it back on premise or leave it how it is currently, because cloud storage is sometimes very, very expensive, so we need to get concrete that if we're using this many gigs or this many terabytes, how much is it really going to cost the city? Because that's kind of with this Azure thing that some of the stuff we ran into, so we're getting prices from several vendors on that too. So other than that, does anybody have any questions that you can think of?
It's like an auctioneer in tech talk, which you're like an auctioneer in tech talk, which just makes us dizzy as all. Yeah, it sounds good because I don't get it. Sorry, are there any questions for Peggy? She's very informative. Actually, she slows it down pretty well for the rest of us when she does talk to help us understand why we need it, which is cool. Tom?
What cloud services have you been looking at?
So what we looked at is for Azure, like when you look at the clouds, instead of having your Active Directory servers like local, or if you have them out there, if we were to do that for Active Directory, or if we were to do it for our storage, like our data storage. Mm-hmm. So we looked at that. We've done some looking with AWS. We currently are working with them some too. The Buffalo Terrace stations that we use actually have a cloud service too. So anything where it makes sense. I'm more concerned at a server level because on each one of these servers, we have like 13 virtual servers. Mm-hmm. And like I said, they all are critical. So, I'm not saying, and then kind of like how we were talking with Zach over a period of time, he would like to see where people start sharing like OneDrive, mm-hmm. where you don't have to pay for Azure, but we're having more shared data, which that's one of the things we're doing like with Town of St. Germain, and that's great, but we got some data cleanup to do. So I think if we can get our data cleaned up here over the progress of this 5 years, or as these servers get older, ultimately our goal still would be that, but right now we have to kind of work through what can be on the cloud, what can't be on the cloud type.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Discuss the update on downtown cameras.
The council had passed a resolution late last year to explore aspects associated with downtown cameras. Generally, our report is a great dovetail from what Peggy was talking about, so that's hence why I think it made sense to have some of that on the same agenda and similar discussion. Tara's also, in the same way we've been tackling the consolidation project, really dividing the area of work. We've just got some information to send over to Steve as it relates to policy and information collection and information sharing, that when we are creating surveillance files, in effect, those things are public documents like squad cameras or body cams. So just understanding the totality of which we'll have to become stewards of those open records that get created. So really just trying to identify the work effort and the workflows that would become necessary, as well as what Peggy talked a little bit about, and that's the cloud storage. That when we're collecting high definition footage, it comes very large files. And when we've got very large files, you've got very large retention expectations. How long do you have to keep that information? If there's cases that are active, if something were to happen in the vestibule of a business business entrance that's really private property, but the city is surveilling that, or our cameras are capturing that. So there's just a number of aspects that we've learned a bit. I think there's a fair amount to learn yet going forward, but nonetheless, it's been a fairly productive effort thus far. We've also heard from some vendors that do provide some public surveillance cameras that do so via solar power. So there isn't a power expectation of this. So a fair amount of, again, information points, and at some point we'll summarize that and share that with all of you as to the conclusions of it. But I think thus far has been, I don't know if Steve or if Tara have anything to add, but that's what I would summarize the information to be. Tom?
The retention of the video, and maybe Attorney Sorensen can attest to this. Is there, are there state laws that say how long you have to keep film for the, or not film, I'm not that old, keep data from the cameras for a certain period of time before they can be deleted, or is that up to the jurisdiction that they are in?
Would be up to the jurisdiction unless it'd be up to the jurisdiction unless it's being used in law enforcement. In law enforcement, if you're going to bring charges, you've obviously got to keep it throughout the process of the charges, and then you'd have to keep it for a period of time thereafter, and then there's a court order that releases it at the end of that period. But as far as day-to-day use, you could be erasing it every day if you wanted to. It's really up to the city to decide. I mean, my biggest concern is what the administrator indicated, is the inadvertent invasion of privacy. That's the biggest concern I think we have, is that not all areas that would be potentially visible to that camera would be public areas. Some of those might be private areas, even the inside of a car, you know, and you gotta be very, very careful.
So how do cities like Eagle River have cameras all over?
They take the risk.
Okay.
Update on the body cameras.
So this project hasn't gotten nearly as much attention as the consolidation project, given the consolidation project really precedes it. But Peggy did reference a couple of areas that we still have to make the determination on whether we're going to go on premise with the storage of that information or stay in the cloud. We've gotten down to probably 2 or 3 vendors, though, you know, doing some additional validation. The more time we burn up on this, the more refined the technology gets. Not necessarily does it get cheaper, but it becomes more refined. And so that's something that, you know, we'll be rolling into once we get to a point. Peggy didn't allude to many of the milestones, but really it's dependent upon the delivery of the product. But again, a lot of the prep work that goes into this is well underway, and we hope to have them turned on at some point in the second quarter of this year, is my understanding, provided we get everything delivered in time. But at this point, you know, it's been a bit premature for us to introduce that level of complexity to the project without having the consolidation effort underway. Though, again, the pre-planning is really important, and so that's the effort that we've been discussing. We'll be picking up the discussion with the chief and the staff there that have been working on this project as we begin to move closer to the consolidation date of the servers.
Any questions? All right. Discuss and approve the scope of engineering services for Olson Lane not to exceed $48,900.
As a refresher, this corridor currently does not have city utilities provided to it, and we asked Town and Country to put together a scope of services to introduce utilities there at the request of at least one property owner that is currently building a home behind AutoZone. And so at this point in time, we're asking the council to begin. We've done some of the design, preliminary design work and some of the cost estimates, but this would close up the whole design for that corridor to add sewer and water services there. And then another item will follow later on our agenda, talking about how we recover the costs for adding those utilities to those properties that are currently not serviced in that area.
I'll accept the motion.
Holt, I'll make a motion to approve the engineering services scope for Olson Lane not to exceed $48,900.
Michalowski, second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions?
This maybe just a clarification of the financing source. That would be financed from the utilities, which carries a reserve, a capital reserve for planning and development projects. So it's not a general fund item because it's just two utilities.
You do want to ask something this time? You were correcting me the other day. Go ahead, Eileen.
So we're just approving the scope. We're not approving the dollars to be spent, correct?
Right. For the design activities, they would be spent.
Yes.
So we can get the project designed.
Because usually that comes in on a estimate or something like that. This is a little unusual as far as voting on spending money. A scope generally does not include approval of money to be spent. Am I off base here?
Yeah, we pay our engineer based on our projects that we have out in front of
Right.
us. So as he puts the scope together, we pay him for that engineering service.
Right, but then we
Correct.
would pay. Then we would vote on paying that would be part of the bills that we pay later on when we receive the invoice.
Previously to this meeting, we've shared a cost estimate for the construction of the utilities. So this is the development of the plans, the design specs that we put out to bid to actually do the construction. So we have at least one property owner that's requested city services in there. So this would be the effort then to begin that process.
Okay.
Any other questions? Gerald?
I take it what that really means then is we're approving purchase of engineering services, right?
That's the clarification that Eileen was looking
Yeah.
for there is you're not paying for the scope, you're paying for the actual design.
Correct.
Right. Sorry, I understand what your question is now. Thanks, Gerald, for wordsmithing that agenda item.
Please call roll.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Discuss and approve bid awards for the park utility trucks, inspections car, Hodag Park improvements.
I'll take them in that order. The parks and utility trucks were included in either the borrowing or through budget discussions. One of the utility trucks for the water department is prematurely outlived its useful life, but we expected it to last longer, and so there's been a need to replace it. We did solicit bids. We received 2 proposals from 2 dealerships, and it's our and we didn't include them in the packet, but it's our recommendation to decline those bids and re-solicit 4 proposals because one, they just came in astronomically in one case, and the other one didn't meet our spec per our nor our budget in the other case. So that would be for the parks and utilities trucks. And the formality of rejecting the bids is purely for purposes of closing that solicitation so we don't have that outstanding.
We'll take this one at a time. Sorry. Thank you. We'll take a motion one at a time. Anybody like to make a motion?
I move that we reject the bids for the utility trusts. You want one at a time, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Parks and utility. Yeah, right.
Parks and utility? Okay. To reject the bids on the parks and utility trusts.
Do I have a second?
Rossing, second.
We have a motion and a second to reject the bids on the park utility trucks, which came in high, and we want to close the solicitation for clarification. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. That works.
The inspections vehicle is listed starting on page 16 in the packet. The low apparent bidder did meet our budgetary expectations as well as specs. They'll be taking the Tahoe in on trade, and we've run a Kelly Blue Book trade on that, and it's an acceptable offer in comparison to what the going market is for trade-in for that vehicle. It's probably a little bit higher than what many of us maybe would pay for it, but it no less is a good trade-in value. So that's from Kasurik in the bid packet.
Barnett, go ahead.
No.
Barnett, I'll make a motion to accept the bid for the inspections car.
Mikulowski, second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have, motion carries. Hodag Park improvements.
We had previously advertised a bid deadline of February 3rd for the Hodag Park improvements, including the amphitheater and associated performance stage. However, due to a number of factors, we agreed with our engineer architect, MSA Professional Services, to extend that 3 weeks. So just as an update to you, we'll be bringing that one forth. One of the factors was low quantity of bid interest, and in speaking to some of them and clarifying, some of the plan holders who had requested copies of the specs acknowledged that just timing was a factor and ability to turn around acceptable bids. So we're optimistic that we'll receive at least one bid this next go around, but can't say the additional time will necessarily produce that or produce a better price, but we're going to give it our best shot.
Does that need a motion then?
Nope, just an update.
Thank you. All right,
I have a
introduction.
question on that.
Yeah.
So, are you saying that, just so I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that no one has bid on building this?
Say that again? Nobody has bid
on building the amphitheater?
We have one bid that would have, so there's a bid portal that holds all the bids,
Right.
sealed bids until we get to the point where we open them. So there's at least one in there as of the 3rd.
And we need more, or we'd like more.
We desire more because
We'd like
a
more.
lot of bids are coming in well exceeding engineers' estimates, and we don't have the money raised well beyond that. So our optimism is generating more competitive interest. We'll keep the prices in check.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to understand it better.
Sure.
Thank you. Introduction of new business. Discuss and approve the bills and claims in the amount of $3,695,309.48.
Barnett, I'll make a motion to accept the bills and claims in the amount of $3,695,309.48.
Holt, I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call roll.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Ryan Rossing,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye. Oops, sorry. Motion carries. We will pay the bills. Discuss and approve the fire department power lift cot from POMSOL in the amount of $26,975.
I'd like the chief to come forward and explain what this improvement would offer the department. I know we did, for financing note, this one was budgeted for in the 2022 budget, but it might be beneficial to know what this might replace and how it'll improve our procedures.
Yeah, good evening. This power lift station is it's the cot that goes in the back of the backup ambulance. It saves on manpower to lift the cot into the ambulance. It's electric, so it helps with patients instead of them using their backs and blowing out backs and stuff to help with patients. And like Zach said, it's already been budgeted for, so we got 2 quotes for this, and this is where we're at.
Daniel, make a motion to approve the fire department power lift cot from Pomisel in the amount of $26,975.
Barnett, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Tom?
I'd like to say, after last night, had my wonderful ride in the new ambulance. It was very comfortable. Having a power cot is very nice because the new ambulance has a power cot, and they had to lift my fat butt up into there, and that power cot helped. So I'm glad that you guys are going to move forward with the new power cot.
Any further discussion? Gerald?
I just had a question about that across from the total, it says pricing valid till January 31st only. A price increase will take effect on February 1st. Do we have any problem on that?
Yeah, we accepted this contingent upon council approval. Knowing that we actually had gone through the financing exercise, we felt comfortable giving them, because they were the low apparent proposer on this, per the procurement policy, but for audit purposes, finance likes to have these still approved by council, which makes sense.
Yeah, this is kind of a formality. We already approved to spend this money. That being the case, I'm going to take it on an aye versus nay basis because we've already spent that money and we already agreed to spend that money. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you. I did that just to make Austin's job a little harder. It's fun. Discuss and approve mayoral appointments for the election officials for the 2022-2023 election cycle.
Daniel, make a motion to accept the mayoral appointments for election officials for the 2022-23 election cycle as presented.
Rossing, second.
We have a motion, a second. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Discuss and approve downtown holiday lighting policy. This was brought to us by Alderman Larson.
Yeah, I can introduce this. I know I've gotten questions from the public as to why the holiday lights are still on downtown. I know we had a number of windstorms that have probably caused them to be unplugged in some instances in the intersection on Brown and Davenport. And I know Larson had raised this maybe first meeting in January, so we had some discussion maybe before as to the timing of the lighting policy. So I talked with Dan about what our policy was, and it's apparent that we don't necessarily have a policy on the books. So wanted to, because Larson raised it and some of the questions that have been raised from the public, bring this forward to the council.
It's going to sound simplistic. I'll take a motion to turn the lights off and take them down.
Actually, I was going to, Daniel, make a motion to direct Zach to create a policy that will outline when the lights are turned on and when the lights are turned off going forward.
There's a motion.
Second.
And there's a second.
And then if I may, for a follow-up question, I would look back to the council to maybe give me some parameters at which when you want those on and off. We can draft the policy, no problem, but give some further direction. I think Larson or Daniel may have.
I would recommend having them turned on at the same time that they do the tree lighting downtown so that the whole thing happens at once, and then have them turned off, let's say, by the second week of January. Is that feasible?
Yeah.
Andrew?
I have another kind of thing. If somebody wants to request them to stay on, they can contact the city to have that request or permit or whatever you want to call it versus just reaching out to department heads and requesting.
Could you give us a little history on this?
I think, Dan, you could speak on this.
Dan? How are we doing it now and why?
Super Bowl Sunday. Super Bowl Monday.
Yeah, this year they had the DNR had requests to leave lights on until we were through that event. I think that the event, what was that called? It ends the end of this month, correct?
Taste of Chocolate is my
Taste of Chocolate. Yep, they wanted to leave it on until the end of Taste of Chocolate. So at that point, we were going to leave them on at that point. But now we got concerns by everybody that they want to turn them off now.
Correct. For clarification, that's DRI, not the DNR, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, DRI. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I was just working with DNR today.
Can we get some feedback from Lauren from our chamber?
Lauren, now also the working representative for DNR. I'm sorry.
I don't need that title too. DRI, the history there is that, at least to my knowledge, is that we usually try to have the lights on the weekend before Thanksgiving for the holiday open house. It continues through the Christmas parade tree lighting. And then they did purchase the snowflakes to be more evergreen with the intention of it remaining on through Taste of Chocolate, which officially ended today.
Thank you kindly. There's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in,
Can we amend the motion on the floor?
I'm not sure what we're all voting on. I don't know if it includes Eileen's dates that she provided or not.
All I'm doing, my original motion asked for Zach to draft a policy regarding the holiday lighting.
Thank you.
that being the motion on the floor, who was it that seconded it? You'll continue to second it with that being the corrected motion. All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Is there a possible way to amend it to go by the dates that Lauren had mentioned, or?
None of the dates were mentioned in the actual original motion.
Okay.
So once Zach drafts the policy, then we can vote on the policy when it comes forward, correct?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
all you've done is instruct Zach to draft a policy. He's heard the comments by both Dan and Lauren, so he can come back with a policy. And I would suggest anybody that has any input, that they would get it to him before it comes back to the committee, because there may be people that have a different idea than Lauren or Dan. And it'd be a good time to do that. But a policy would come back well before the season for lighting next year.
Okay, yeah, good. I was just
And-
wondering, because he was asking for clarification on dates and stuff, and that seemed pretty specific, so.
Andrew?
Would that not fall under like the permitting or the permission? If we were to do, you know, whatever time Eileen said to whatever, if they wanted them to stand, could they not fill out a request to have them stay up until?
I guess that would be under the purview of our administrator now who's writing the policy.
I'm just saying, I mean, well, and we could just keep them up till July. I mean,
I completely understand, and yeah.
He's writing it right now?
Yeah. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Discuss and approve the award of the Phillips Street water main bid to Mussins Brothers in the Inc. in the amount of $205,100.
This project is, excuse me, for the replacement of the water main under the Phillips Street Bridge. We had two bidders. The bid opening was on February 3rd. We had two bidders for this project, Mussin Brothers and Yaki. Both are very capable contractors and have done projects like this in the past. The idea of this project is to replace that 6-inch water main under the bridge that's deteriorating, and the city has repaired on multiple occasions. We're also extending to the east about 140 feet to get past the dam portion, which is where the actual dam is on that east side. We'd extend that water main to get past that for future connection. When the city does Phillips Street, we're not actually into that dam, so we're extending that out about 150 feet. There's a supplemental bid item on this project for removal and disposal of unsuitable backfill, and an item for granular backfill where we're anticipating some bad soils in there. There's also an alternate bid. That alternate bid would be for the addition of a casing pipe to extend it further to the west. That's to get under that first set of tracks. In discussions with staff, that would not be necessary at this time. If there is a future project extending water main and sanitary on Phillips Street, which is on the city's 5-year capital improvement plan, there's multiple railroad crossings, so the feeling would be you'd see a better price on that casing pipe in the future. And for this project, it's not absolutely necessary. So that being said, the prices we got from Mussin Brothers were very good, much lower than my engineer's estimate. So we would recommend the base bid for the replacement of the water main underneath the bridge, 25 feet to the west, and replacing the 140 feet to the east, and also awarding the supplemental bid item and not awarding the alternate bid for the casing pipe.
Rossing. I'll make a motion to approve the award of the Phillip Street Water Main bid to Musson Brothers, Inc. in the amount of $205,100, which would include the base bid and the supplemental bid.
Anderson, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? Please call roll.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Discuss and approve the award of the contract A to Pitlick and Wick in the amount of $111,163.40, and B and B1 to Chippewa Concrete Services in the amount of $134,864.90.
These two contracts, this was one bidding document that went out with multiple contracts, Contract A and Contract B. These contracts also correlate to the city's chip seal project they have going on that was bid out separately. Pitlick has that chip seal project. I believe that was awarded to Pitlick. There's two parts to this. The Contract A is asphalt paving. So there's 3 streets on the base bid. There's Morrill, Abner, and Lake Street. None of those streets have curb and gutter. This is a good opportunity for the city to pulverize those roads. Are all in horrible condition. Pulverize them, repave them without having to deal with any concrete work in those areas. For Contract A, there were 2 alternate bids, both for Iverson, 2 sections of Iverson, one from Acacia to Timber, the other from Timber to the dead end to the south. For Contract A, we would recommend the base bid only, which would be Lake Street, Abner, and Morrill. These prices from Pitlick are very good pricing. Pitlick and Wick is a very capable paving contractor. They've done chip seal work in the city, and they do a lot of paving work in surrounding communities. So we'd recommend award of the base bid to Pitlick and Wick for Contract A. Do you want to handle these separately, Mayor, or you want me to step right into B?
Take them as a batch,
Okay.
as you suggest.
Okay. Contract B is for concrete work. So the idea with this curb and gutter work, this goes along with the chip seal project. So the roads that are being chip sealed also have some curb and gutter that is in need of spot repair. You'll see Contract B, Part 1. There's a list of roads on this recommendation letter. Those are all roads that are getting chip sealed that have short sections of concrete, curb and gutter in need of replacement. We're talking 3-foot to 15-foot, 20-foot sections of concrete. The contractor that is awarded this contract would come in and replace those small pieces of concrete prior to the chip seal contractor coming in and chipping. So there are 2 parts to this. There's small sections, those 3 to 30-foot sections I just mentioned. There's also a base bid Part 2, which is basically per block. So we have 3 blocks of Timber Drive in the base bid, extending from Evergreen Court past Wisconsin, which is the dead end right at the river. That's 3 blocks of Timber Drive. That is also getting chip sealed. The asphalt pavement is in decent shape and primed for a chip seal, but the concrete curb and gutter is in very poor condition. The idea here would be to replace that concrete curb and gutter along with driveway approaches and do some driveway patching along that way. Have that curb and gutter repoured, set in time for the chip seal contractor to come in and complete their work. Along with this project, we had 3 alternates. There was 1 additional block of Timber Drive. That's from Thayer to Evergreen. And there are 2 blocks of Evergreen Court. Again, full block areas. Within the budget that the city has allotted for this project, we feel we can get Timber Drive, that next block from Thayer to Evergreen, completed as an alternate within that budget. So there was 1 bidder on this, Chippewa Concrete Services. They've done multiple projects in the city, a very capable contractor. We would recommend award of contract B base bid plus alternate 1, which is that block of Timber Drive from Thayer to Evergreen.
Just once again, for public's sake, the savings that comes of lumping some of these together is the mobility for them coming into the area and then staging. Is that correct? So you didn't have separate companies doing separate projects. We'd have to pay for them to stage and show up.
Correct.
Thank you.
I have one clarification. You said that on the Pitlick and Wick, you said the base bid only. Doing the quick math on that, it's the base bid plus the supplemental bid of $19,818. Is that correct?
That's correct, Ryan. Yeah,
Okay.
I misspoke. That is plus the supplemental. And that supplemental is some driveway patching and anticipating some poor soils and some EBS. I would not expect all that supplemental to be used up, but I would expect some of the driveway patching to be used. So you will use some of that supplemental. You may not use all of it.
One additional detail I want to add on the Morrill Street aspect is Steve and I have been talking with the property owners there for quite some time now. That's the road that leads up to the water tower. There's a number of adjacent property owners that are using city property currently for private purposes in some instances, so we're trying to find out the best path to clean that area up from a property use standpoint. And further, one of the property owners wishes to develop a driveway again across potentially on city property, so that may involve some sale of city property, but that's an area that's actively being considered. So, you know, we want to get Morrill Street cleaned up for our own purposes and accessing the water tower, but also potentially long-term there would be some benefits to the property owners adjacent to that area for their cleaning up their access rights and privileges.
I'll accept a motion.
Gerald has a question.
Thank you. Go ahead, turn your light on, make the motion so we can
Turn it
start.
on, yeah. I move approval of the contract with Pitlick and Wick for street improvements as described in Contract A, base bid plus supplemental totaling $111,163.40, and the contract with Chippewa Concrete Services listed as Contract B for the base bid plus alternate 1 for a total of $134,864.90.
We have a motion.
Rossing, second.
In a second. Tom?
My question was, are we...
Go ahead and pull your mic a little closer to yourself.
Probably the worst part of Timber Drive is from Thayer Street to Evergreen Court. That's the worst part, because I drive it every day. And the other, up to the river needs work, but I think the worst part is, and I'm glad to see that it's getting done.
Yeah, and
it's getting done.
Yeah, and the idea with that, so we wanted to get the curb done for the projects that are imminent, and that would be the chip seal
And
this
you're-
year. So the idea behind adding that block in as an alternate is that the city would have the opportunity next year in 2023 to come in and maybe do a mill and overlay, and you'd have curb ready to go. So all 4 blocks would be in good shape at that point.
Okay, and what about Abner Street? You're just doing Evergreen Court to Thayer. You're not going to take it all the way up to Morrill?
No, that is being chip sealed.
Okay. All right.
We have a motion and a second. Please call roll.
David Holt.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Thank you, Mark. And the ayes have it. Discuss the preliminary utility assessment procedures on 3.02.03.
If you flip to page 48 in your packet, this is the copy of the ordinance that corresponds with special assessment procedures that the city utilizes to assess for the cost of improvements, public improvements to streets, utilities, sidewalks, and any other improvement that the city wishes to execute and especially assess for. The last time the procedures were utilized were the Lincoln Street sidewalk addition, so the eastern portion of Lincoln. Basically what I want to point out to you all tonight is a few things. One, that we have special assessment procedures to offset the cost of providing the improvements. It's been some time since Rhinelander added utilities in improved or existing neighborhoods in the case of the Olson Lane example. There are a number of areas throughout the city that do not have city services provided. So in many respects, the way we do it going forward for Olson Lane really should be the same as we do going forward everywhere. So there isn't a dispute or a question on that. So I'm not asking you to, dive into this in great detail, but really to know on a high level that we do have a procedure, and talking with Steve about this, state statutes and obviously our ordinances do provide for what kind of procedures we need to follow. On page 51, it talks about, or maybe, on 50, the computation of assessments. There's a number of variables that can exist for computation of assessments. In fact, on the Olson Lane, Mark and I have spent considerable amount of time talking about the variety of ways at which we could assess for those improvements to recover the costs, so our utility ratepayers are not seeing a disproportionate increase in the utilities costs and therefore impacting rates across the city. So generally, in most places, it's a shared responsibility. The utility picks up a portion because they're operating the utility, but also the joining or benefiting property owner abutting those improvements also pays a portion of those improvements, unless some other grant funding source might pay for it or that nature. So that's the computation of assessments. Again, it identifies a number of ways. Steve and I talked about some alternatives of which we could consider this as well, and some of it relates to an availability or an accessibility fee. So if you're adding sewer and water in front of a home, there's an availability and an accessibility benefit there, and so therefore you charge a fee for the cost of that. And then the other point would be a connection fee. In the case of Olson, there are 7 parcels. 6 of those parcels currently have private water and sewer systems. So by ordinance, we require them to connect at some point in the future. However, again, the cost recovery, they may not be ready to at the time, but when they do, that cost gets reserved for application to their connection. They would also still be responsible for their own private lateral. That's the point between the home and the property line. So that's the assessment procedures. Page 51 talks about the number of installments that the city may consider. We allow up to 8 years of payments. I do want to draw your attention to D on page 51, which talks about the interest rate. The last time this ordinance was revised was 1993, and obviously interest rates were a lot different than what they are today. We're operating in the ordinance at a 12% interest rate, and the city's borrowing costs would be significantly less than that if we were to borrow on our own. So therefore, it'd be my recommendation that we consider some variable interest rate that allows the ordinance to live and breathe. We tie it to something like the prime rate, where there's a administrative cost, a benefit, because if it's private service, sometimes you get taxable bonds, and there's some implications there. But anyway, we should really look at that interest rate for future revision, as well as potentially making modifications to incorporate some more modern assessment activities like the one I just referenced that Steve and I talked about. So, there's a number of aspects to this, but like I said, there's a number of areas around town that don't currently have utilities available to them, and I would imagine those property owners at some point are going to be approaching the city either on a new development, or on the replacement or failure of existing systems. Our ordinances do not generally allow the operation of private systems in the city. That's a DNR concern, as well as municipal growth concern. Particularly when we may have groundwater contamination, among other issues. So you don't need to necessarily read through that for gospel. I just want to draw your attention to that tonight. We, at some point, will, in the fairly near future, we'll need to make some decisions on how we're assessing people for the water and sewer additions on Olson Lane. And again, we want to be consistent going forward. So I'll look to Steve to see if there's any additional points that should be made or highlighted in that consideration.
Well, no, I think what's important is we've got to follow the law and we've got to treat everyone the same, but we also have to recognize the unique situation of where you have property that would normally have a line that would cover two sides of a road that's only covering one side of a road. It's kind of unfair where if you were covering both sides of the road, you would have split it. Here you're only covering one side. So some of those aspects of this project make it really unique, and that's why we spent quite a bit of time trying to discover something that was equitable based on what we do in the rest of the city, so that nobody is getting unfairly treated. And we've got a pretty good idea how to do it. We just got to roll it out. Also remember, there has to be a public hearing once we do roll it out. I mean, people have a right to come in and protest whatever their assessment is. So there will be a public hearing and everybody will have an opportunity to say, we don't like the way you did it, or we don't like the numbers. And then it's up to you as a council to approve the process, or approve the exact numbers.
Any questions? Gerald?
I just wondered if this project was going to involve tearing up a bunch of road of Olson Lane.
Yeah, it's likely that all or a portion of Olson Lane would be removed, the street surface. So as we've been looking through the true costs, there's the water sewer addition, there's the private lateral, which is really the private citizen's concern, but there is the street cost. And one of the equitable ways to treat this, since we do have the Pratt Fund, is to consider the roadway expenses to be a public improvement, that the street will be improved there, and it's probably on the path of needing to be improved anyway. So historically, the city has not assessed for road improvements or rehab to the private abutting property owners. And fortunately, we're one of the few to have a Pratt tax to afford us to be able to make those improvements.
Any other questions? Moving on. Discussion 3.04.02 Parks Regulation Special Events Procedures associated with the fees schedule. Discuss 5.07.4.103 temporary land use types and outdoor assembly and special events.
So just some introductory framing comments on this would be city staff and I and the clerk namely has been working to take a look at the special events process and procedures. It seems that at every turn it becomes a little more complicated at times. We uncover different tentacles where it's connected either through ordinance or the way different departments may have historically looked at this. So we've tried to take an open mind to simplifying the process, though I think there very well could be further simplification of it. So my recommendation tonight, and it's on pages 32 to 45, I believe, in our packets. It ends up being 26 pages or 13 double-sided. So I think, and we've taken a decent look at other municipalities and how they administer special events. You know, there's the aspect of procedurally, does the council want to see these applications every time, or if they're a repeat application, can we bring them forward if there's any changes after you make an initial approval? I think that's one policy decision that the council should weigh in on. Secondarily, any fee waivers. We've done a little bit of research on fee waivers. You know, there's the gamut of municipalities, as you can imagine, run different approaches on fees, recognizing that generally it's a cost of doing business, though as some of the discussion with Alder Barnett in particular is, you know, way we make public spaces available to certain entities like the fair, for example. We have a lease with the fair for use of Pioneer Park. So those would, while they may still need to fill out a special events application procedurally, they potentially could seek different support from the city, a la street closure fees or barricades and that type of nature through the form of a lease. So, you know, just remember the kind of twists and turns as it relates to the types of events, the nature of events, who holds events. I think Lauren talked about the nonprofit impact. You know, all those factors should be considered. At the same time, you know, I would continue to remind ourselves that we don't charge fees for the sake of fees. We generally do it on a per cost basis. But we certainly can consider those activities maybe to further simplify and streamline the fee aspects, so we're not charging on a per street basis or per intersection. There might be more equitable and fair ways to do that. So those would be my framing comments for this, but I would welcome input and feedback.
Eileen?
So at this juncture, we're just looking at the procedures. We're not voting, we're not accepting these. Okay.
Purely discussion tonight, yeah.
Per discussion. So at this time, you're going to be going through this, making any changes. I'm just trying to get a scope on what's happening with this.
Absolutely. As work product comes out,
Okay.
sometimes we'll even present it to you and it takes how long to get cameras from downtown on there. Other times you can bring it and it has side notes to what that work products. Some of them are a living, breathing, or document that moves from place to place because that's the work product. This work product is, as we have it, even in this form, still needs work to be done. Please pay attention to it, read it, look at it, come with your suggestions, email them to any of the administrative team as we see it. This has gotten to this point, partially because the Teresa over here has worked really hard on it, is leaving. So at this point, it's that marker in the sand, but at the same time, it is by far not finished. And do you want me to move on to Tom, or do you have?
I just have one
Okay,
follow-up
cool.
question. When doing the revisions, I would draw your attention to 3.04.065, exclusive use of park, number 4, and this should make Lauren a little more comfortable, where it does say fees may be waived by the Parks Building and Ground Committee for a bona fide nonprofit organization. But that does need to be changed because we do no longer have a Parks Building and Grounds Committee.
Thank you.
And that statement also
Yes.
does carry throughout. I know Steve and I were talking a little bit about earlier, and he may want to weigh in on that. This is in effect, but what is a good, fair, and equitable way to treat that issue going forward? If you want to say
Yeah, the
anything.
thing I would tell the whole group is there's an awful lot of that policy that's got to be changed. I mean, an awful lot of it that's got to be changed. And the concept of fees or permits, right now, you've got to look to the aspect of the activity and the time frame more than you look at some of the other factors that were pretty arbitrary and capricious. So I think what we'll come back with is something that is a lot more tenable and easier to understand and a little more flat. In other words, not so many different fees so that it takes a mathematician to figure out how much they're going to have to pay. And then creating programs that allow people to ask for grants or other funding to cover fees. That's what I've seen in other communities that I've worked with. Most communities have a application and then have a standard fee that takes 1 page, not 16. So that's what our goal is going to be.
Tom?
Yeah, I want to give my older persons a little context here with, I had a really good discussion with Zach on all of this, and historically, for special events, the fees were already in there for charging for fees since 2016, but historically have not been enforced in any shape or form. So when Zach comes across it in the paperwork, his job is to make sure that the policy is being followed as it was adopted, which he was doing. But I had requested from him to come to us and have, during his report, let us know that, this was adopted. I'll just use the fee schedule for an example. This was adopted in 2016, historically hasn't been enforced. What, as you, as council, would like to do with this policy? Do you want to enforce it now, or do you want to revisit and rewrite the policy? So I think having that understanding is going to help us make better decisions when that's involved. As a matter of fact, I know Steve Sauer is here in the audience tonight, and he is an alderperson during those times, and I would ask him to come up and give some historical context on that policy that was passed in 2016.
He,
Steve Sauer, citizen, former alder. In 2016, the fee schedule was approved. The new, and actually I believe the parks event packet, or the citywide event packet, was actually, I believe, approved in 2015. But it may have still been undergoing the constant refurbishment that ended up with a 16-page document, which was intended to make things easier. However, it made things far more complicated and far more difficult to put together as a nonprofit group moving forward. The unfortunate downfall of approving a fee schedule and then having massive turnover of administrators is that the fees were never pushed. They were never, contracts were put together based on user fees, much like the Pop Warner contract that you signed or approved earlier this evening. There were contracts put together with the different groups that regularly used the parks, and it was kind of used as a template, but the fee schedule was not extended to every group that came into the city and every group that had something to do at that point. So you have this lapse in communication of that fee schedule, and that's where I think a lot of the concerns came up when, as Tom said, Zach said, oh, they have a fee schedule. Okay, well, we're going to start approving these fees or charging these fees when the fees just weren't being charged normally. Shelter fees have always been charged, stuff like that, but street closing fees, all that fun stuff was really never addressed after the actual fee structure was approved. So just a little bit of context.
Thank you, Steve. So as a caveat to that, I would like to say that for 501c3s, with all due respect, to Zach, I hate that it's cost of doing business. 501c3s are not in business. They're there to fundraise for really, really good causes, and I would hate to see them get tacked with fee upon fee for closing streets and everything when they're just trying to make money for a good cause. And I fear that if they start having to spend too much money doing this stuff, that we're going to lose a lot of really great events in Rhinelander, as well as all the Pratt money they bring in and all the tourists they bring in to spend money in the downtown businesses during those events. So I would like to see us work together with Zach on adopting a policy where it's a lot more clear that 501c3s can request a waiver of said fees. Now, obviously, there are events that happen that are not 501c3s, like some of the parades, and one of the big contexts was that Mayor Frederickson, at the time Alderperson Sauer, and a few other people were cleaning up a huge mess by themselves down Brown Street after a parade. And I would say to cover those fees, we put in the application for the event that says you have 24 hours to clean up after your event that you held, and if not, the city will clean it up and they would get charged for that cleanup. I think that is a good way to cover those costs as opposed to charging non-for-profits a large fee for doing what they do best. So I just wanted to put that in context for everybody.
Thank you. Discussion of council chambers furniture. Jeremy may want to make his way forward, but this item was originally introduced during the borrowing discussions in April of last year, shortly around the time we approved new microphones. And the microphones, I think, are working tremendously. However, it's unsafe to continue to have the microphones and the wiring in the current configuration. Jeremy had previously looked into this item, maybe provide some historical context. I don't want to misspeak. But at this point in time, the scope has included council chambers and taking a look at, again, how do we make it safer, make sure our ingress and egress is satisfactory and
some of the other issues are, especially with our recording service, since we have no plan to discontinue the recordings that we're currently doing, and the addition of cameras throughout the room here.
Yeah, and to make it easier for the recordings, it would be, we've talked about rearranging the room a little bit. And we've thought about with some smaller size tables, so it's not one person at a 8-foot table, just kind of simplifying the room a little bit. And we'd be kind of staging everybody on this side of the room with a little L over there for officials, and then audience out front, along with more cameras, wall mount type style, to make it easier for these guys to videotape and easier for the Zoom to happen. So just kind of cleaning up this room a little bit and using the space so the crowd's not so far away when they have important things to talk about and things like that. So and then we're looking at, we have 2 tester chairs here somewhere in the room. We're testing those out a little bit, see what's comfortable and what isn't, and we're going to go from there. So if you haven't sat in them, give them a try.
Teresa's
sitting
still
in one
smiling
right now, and probably rolling all over on that one.
So Teresa, let us know, how's it feel?
It feels great, but the one that Steve Sorensen in is much more comfortable.
Oh, he snagged that one right off the bat, huh?
No, I had that one last meeting, and I think that one's more comfortable than this one.
It'll be a 3-month discussion. Thank you. It's on discussion.
I got, so what's the plan for moving forward on this? Like how far into the future to decide the cameras and changing the room configuration?
So we just got furniture quotes last week, so we're trying to build in. We had I think 10,000 in the budget, or in the borrowing, excuse me, for City Hall improvements, something along that line. But so that's going to get chewed up pretty quickly with furniture. They're along the same lines. Tom Kelly was the point of reference on the original purchasing of the chairs we're using. It sounds like they're about the same price in today's dollars. Yeah, $100 a piece, he tells me, are these.
Microphone.
They were $100 a piece. Did you hear me, Tom?
Yeah, they were saying.
Yeah. And these are not
What?
all that far off from that price. So, so I think the plan is to order the chair. I mean, these things could take a while depending on, especially at the tables. So we're going to get the demo tables. We haven't seen the tables yet.
One of the considerations for this obviously was also eye contact for the mayor, and or looking at the council, or the viewing of the gallery, and then dropping the TV from when they're on Zoom, so that it's not necessarily a looking up and then missing what's going on. Is to have it all within the scope or purview of both the people and the cameras, and then the mayor also to see what's going on. Tom?
Yeah, so just so that it's on record, because historically we've had some issues with office furniture. It is within budget for this to happen, correct?
Always has been.
Thank you.
Eileen?
Did you mention new tables? Because I'm looking at that one warping, and I've been all night long. This one's coming up over here too, and even if we just get them resurfaced or something, this looking pretty shoddy.
I know Alder Larson's been worried about Tom's health over there, so I think I had lunch at that table today. It was fine, by the way. But yes, so I think the plan is to do tables and chairs in the same swoop, and then deal with some of the channeling of the wires. The other question is if we need power ports for future council devices, tablets or laptops, which is a part of the IT consolidation project. So those are some of the details we're still working into. I don't think we have any camera equipment pricing yet at this time, but we should be within a matter of weeks of getting the total estimate in front of the group to make some decisions.
Gerald?
Just to add my comments, I think these chairs seem plenty comfortable to me. And the big tables have been really nice for social distancing during COVID.
Thank you.
I agree with the chairs. I mean, they are fine, but I disagree with the tables. I think we could definitely consolidate, and I don't need a whole table to myself, so I'll have to disagree on that. Sorry.
moving forward with pressing business, we discussed the engaging with Art Start and the scope of services for public art and the skate park feasibility. These were additions to your packets.
So for purposes of tonight's discussion, we'll take the skate park item, and I know Ashley's here from Art Start. You may want to speak to this. Really, this is a starting point for engagement on the, I would call it feasibility analysis or pre-planning effort as it relates to the skate park. So while city staff will be plugged in and inherently involved in this, we've asked Art Start to come up with a proposal that includes some additional experts in the skate park field. Their bios are listed at the bottom of the second page and the top of the third page here. One is the co-founder of City of Skate, and then the other one is a skate park builder. And the intent there is really youth-led and youth-engaged design and feasibility analysis and effort. We can support and we can offer input and guidance, we meaning administration and staff, but really it has to be a community effort that brings everybody together. So that's why we're proposing to partner with Art Start on this. There is some detail as it relates to the steering committee and community-wide listening sessions and public engagement. Not asking necessarily for any hard and fast action on this tonight, but as an introduction, I encourage you to, if you haven't made your way through it, to offer some input or guidance as we go forward. And Ashley, I'm not sure if you have anything more to add as to Art Start's perspective on this effort, but that might be helpful for council to hear.
As she makes her way up to the microphone, I'm going to tell you how being the mayor started to affect me. So we got this originally done in scope because a big portion of this, at least as far as Tom's concerned and myself, is one, moving this project along in a timely manner, having deliverables that are marched out so that both our youth and our city know what's going on. So we received the first scope, and it was on Wednesday because that was a timeliner on Thursday. And then on Friday, I was at home working on stuff, and I saw that there was an updated scope sent out. Well, I couldn't open it up. So being the mayor, that I will do the due diligence to make sure the words are as close. I'm not quite the grammatical Nazi, but at the same time, to make sure that the words and everything match up, I spent that portion of time looking at the contracts and sitting there side by side at the two scopes, and I could not find one word different. So I called Ashley on the weekend and said, I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm looking at the scope and the updated scope, and there's nothing changed. She goes, oh, the only thing I did was took off the draft and put it on letterhead. I'm like, well, you could have saved me about 3 hours of looking at these same words. Moving on. Ashley?
Yeah, I didn't want it to go with draft written on it. So, yeah, Art Start is here. We're proposing to facilitate the first step in the skate park process, a feasibility study. Our proposal is in your packets tonight. After meeting with the Overett Group, Mayor Fredrickson, and the current city administrator and other potential partners, we have all identified there are way too many unknowns at this point for the project to gain traction. We need to research a location that best serves our community, but also find an accessible location for the youth. We need to understand the short and long-term uses and desires of our community. We also need to understand the scope and cost of the project. And then we need to see if we can come up with a plan that is achievable for our community. Art Start is proposing to approach the project in a creative planning process. We're also proposing to bring in a very well accomplished artist skateboarder who approaches building youth from a youth development perspective and also a community engagement angle. We are also proposing to bring in a skate park building partner to help us understand and dream about what is possible. So we're here. We'd love to help. We'd love your feedback. That's what I got.
All right. Thank you.
You have a comment on it?
Whoa. What?
Are we talking about it, or are you going to move forward, Mayor?
No.
Yeah, I just wanted to give my perspective. I looked at the scope briefly, and I mean, there's I think it was around a $22,000 cost roughly, and I think it's going to take somebody, a group, Art Start, and working with a lot of different stakeholders to make this what we and everybody else wants it to be. So it's a lot of time and energy, maybe something that an administrator and city staff shouldn't or doesn't have to be involved with, and I appreciate the step up on this to make it what everybody wants it to be. So I think it's a good thing and very well thought out and stated in the proposal thus far. So thanks.
I'm going to say I'm excited about this project as I worked with some of the people. One is the defining factors of all the different people that are interested in being a part of it and being able to choreograph that timeline, those deliverables and whatever. But I'm excited about that. Tom?
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that Art Start is doing their due diligence and making sure that this is all moving forward in the correct way, while keeping in mind that, time doesn't need to drag it out to years and years and years. But I will say that Art Start needs the city's cooperation in this, and we need to start giving them where we stand on it and what we want done, and our support in a way to partner with Art Start, the city and the Art Start, creating this youth development area. And I think that we need to start putting up a plan where we tell Art Start that we are going to be backing this, we'll be, supporting this, and giving them some deliverables as well.
I think a good place to start with that would be with a motion. If you look at their deliverables, it has by the end of February when it comes to the idea of the next steps. So that doesn't give us a lot of wiggle room. So I would accept a motion if you see fit as a council to make that motion for the scope of services and move forward.
Barnett, I'll make a motion to follow the scope of services presented by Art Start.
Daniel, second.
There's a motion and a second. That comes with a price tag, so
yeah, in the amount of $22,000.
Daniel, would you like to second that motion?
I still
now that it's
second it,
at him?
yes.
Yeah. Are we okay accepting that motion now that it's in two parts? Thank you. Further discussion. Gerald.
So where does the money come from?
Where does the money come from?
Yeah, there's a number of options. One, we do have some money in the the 2022 or 2021 borrowing, however you want to look at it, for parks improvements. We initially slated that for Heel Creek Trail development. However, that hasn't been determined at this point. So that would be the first financing source. The second would be to take a look at the city's ARPA funding that it currently has been reserving for future improvements. I would say that, and then the third option could be a budget amendment. If we have unspent funds as we get throughout the year, we could amend line items or reappropriate those dollars, though I wouldn't necessarily recommend that because we really don't know what the budget year looks like at this stage. But those would be the two options I would offer at this stage that are currently available to us and available to council's direction.
Thank you for that question.
The other point that was raised is potentially applying for a community foundation grant. I think the mayor raised that recently. The foundation submissions are due the end of this month. And I know Art Start and the city have been actively working with the foundation in the past. So, that might be something we may want to throw a grant application in for yet this year, or this month, I should say.
Tom?
Yeah, to answer Gerald, if you look at the qualifications for ARPA funding, this does fall right in line with the qualifications to receive ARPA funding. Obviously, we're going to be chasing grants, and they already have a very large amount of community-minded individuals and groups that are just eager and chomping at the bit to help out. So I don't think, obviously, being responsible for funding and applying for grants and such as ARPA, I don't think they're going to have a problem with the money at all.
Tom,
They're busy.
I'm taking over for the mayor.
Yeah, he's busy. I need to ask Steve Sauer a question. Steve, could you step up to the microphone again, please?
Thank you, Ashley. taking my calls on the weekends.
Do you remember a few years ago, there was a gentleman came to the Parks Commission, was gonna donate some, skateboard equipment?
The equipment?
Yeah, do you remember that?
I do remember that.
And what happened to that equipment?
He donated that equipment. The city said that we would build a skate park, then we didn't, and he took it back.
So the equipment.
Because we did not follow through on our end of the commitment.
Okay, do you know where that equipment is, or did it get?
I did not follow it, but I'm sure it's being put to use somewhere.
Okay.
Because I believe it was 2 years that we sat on that equipment, and did not follow through with our end. So.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's, yeah.
Jeremy, do you have anything to add to this also? As long as you're smiling and here.
I'd just like to add on this Art Start proposal that you got on the very back page. There's that first YouTube video that's on there, and it doesn't take very long at all. I don't know if it's 2 minutes or 10 minutes. I can't really remember. But that's a type of thing where if you put that style of skate park, like right across from McDonald's in that gravel parking lot, and then it's an artist that paints huge murals on buildings and stuff, it would, I mean, people go to North Minneapolis just to see those murals, so that would be a cool thing for our town as well. It's a smaller skate park, but just the murals and stuff really bring a lot of attention. So it's something to look at.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. We will be spending money that we will find out where it comes from, so I'm going to ask you to call roll on it.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson. David Holt.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
A big aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
The ayes and a big eye have it. Discuss the presentation of the fire department staffing options.
Can I do a preview to this?
Yeah,
I
sure.
just want to make sure that there's a lot of fire department people here, and just want to make sure there was clarification on what this actual agenda item is. I had happened to read an article in the Northwoods River News that said discuss prevention of fire department staffing options, and I double-checked and triple-checked mine, and it did not say that. It said discuss presentation of fire department staffing options. So I want to make sure everybody was aware of that. Thanks.
Thank you.
I too caught that. It was kind of caught me by surprise that there would have been a prevention of anything. Obviously, we heard a lot of feedback and input from the chief and from members of the fire department at a work session last Tuesday. And if folks didn't get a chance to see it, there is a recording of it. I think the link has made its way around a variety of sources in the community and beyond. And I want to continue to express our desire, and I know I've talked, I think, just about with all of you since that last meeting as to what you heard and what your ideas are, and I want to continue to affirm our desire to look at ways to grow the department. We heard various elements of need in which the department members or leadership believe that we should look at considering to address, and certainly my commitment remains to that at your direction by members of the council who I believe ultimately want to grow the department and support the needs of Rhinelander Fire and EMS services here in the community. So I guess I would, and I don't know if Ryan's going to run the discussion, he stepped out, but those are just my opening comments. You know, the staffing options, you know, can certainly be brought forward based upon input as was previously expressed, and certainly remain willing to commit the time to develop those options and whatever supporting research or documentation or information you like to see from us.
Open for discussion. Andrew.
Yeah, just for transparency's sake here, I was not very happy with the way that work session went. You know, it's good that they got to speak and whatnot, but we really didn't get anything done. So I reached out to Zach myself to ask if he would be willing to sit down with myself and another council person. I did get ahead of myself. I did not speak to the chief first. I did contact Luke Drummond. He and whoever he would like to sit down with and have a discussion on what they need and what they want, what needs to be filled. Just to continue that, just the 5 of us to sit down and have a discussion. So that's just my...
Sorry, I didn't see. Do you want to offer up which one of you had your hand up first? Okay, thank you.
I feel like we know what they want. They want an assistant chief, so I don't think that's a mystery. And I agree. I think that needs to happen as well. I guess my question to Zach is, what do you want from us? A funding source for that, or I guess what do you want us as a council to be the next step?
Well, I think there were a couple of needs raised. One, there seemed to be a desire to add potentially either an administrative position or a position that might support call activity. I know we talked to the chief about in the past, and he has drafted a job description that could be executed upon. But I think at this point in time, we're still at the need understanding that are the members supportive of that. At the same time, I also see the chief in his work product that he had handed out that night where he would like to see some additional personnel. So it acknowledges that they need to staff at least 6 personnel, so there still would be a short person, I think it states in there. So I think, we need to continue to discuss this to make sure administration and members of the department, as well as the departmental leadership, is aligned on what that need or multiple needs might be. There might be emergent needs today, there might be more urgent needs, and there might be less urgent needs long term, and I think we need to make sure we all understand what those are.
Okay, thank you.
Tom.
I do support bringing back the assistant fire chief, and I would really like to volunteer myself to be your second alderperson during that meeting, because I think there is a lot more to be talked about, and I want to see it talked about in a calm, professional manner, because I think there's a lot of things that can be really worked out with just talking it out and coming up with solutions as opposed to arguing over what those solutions are. I think we need to come together and really lay out a cohesive plan to bring that assistant fire chief back, because I want to see that happen sooner or later. So,
David.
Thank you. Yeah, I also reached out to Zach after the work session, and to speak a little bit to what Carrie asked. Yes, the assistant fire chief position, but also exactly what does that mean? What does it entail? Because it's going to be where we want to make sure that the staffing that we add really doesn't miss any of the needs, right? The biggest takeaway that I took from last Tuesday was we've got new big businesses coming into Rhinelander. We've got several real estate development projects. If we've already got a first responder system that is stretched too thin, what are we setting ourselves up for in the future when we're actually expecting an uptick in population in this area over the coming years? And so now is the time to make sure that we, I agree with having the discussion to make sure that we put on the table exactly what we want that to look like. The titles, I mean, if we're sticking with that title, excellent, but that might not be all of what we need. And I think we shouldn't do it piecemeal. I think we should have a full discussion of what we're looking at a bit more long term. One thing that I did express to Zach was that with regard to carts and horses here, that my way of looking at this is that the balance sheet and balancing the X's and O's is a means to get the ends that we want. not an ends into itself. So kind of looking at it in that respect, look first at what is it that that the fire department is saying that they need and want, what sets us up best in the future to preserve the uniquenesses that we have. And if our fire department moving forward in Rhinelander looks fairly unique, if you're comparing it to other fire departments around the state, other fire departments in cities that are the same size as Rhinelander, that's okay. Rhinelander is a very unique community as well, and it's okay for our services to look unique. What's important is that they function well, and they function well with the surrounding communities.
Andrew?
Yeah, that's, I get the idea of what they want, I'm not, and I'm all for it, but I just want to know more about it, not, what was said in the past, what was said, I don't want that no more. If this is, just, we got to know, they were cut short at that work session, which was uncalled, they should have had that whole work session for them to justify what they wanted, or not justify, but speak what they wanted to say, not reach out to their alder people, or, that should have never happened.
Gerald?
Yeah, since we don't have committees to do this kind of thing, but should possibly have a task force or some other name, I like Andrew's suggestion that we need a smaller group of some sort to keep this thing moving and find out the things we need to find out and to make recommendations.
Eileen?
I would like to point out that we do have a police and fire commission that meets on a regular basis.
Statutorily, they have obligations. Did you want to explain?
Well, their role is to hire and fire. Their role is not to evaluate or to budget or to develop the department.
I understand that. But they are keeping an eye on personnel. They are keeping an eye on staffing, as you mentioned. Did you just go like that?
Well, again, their job is to hire and fire. It's not, you have to understand the reason police and fire commissions were created in the first instance. It was created to avoid nepotism that occurred. And that's why it was set up. It's not to replace the council or replace the council's powers to establish. Police and Fire Commission can't create a fire department. It can't create a police department. It can't create an emergency services director. The city council could tomorrow vote to eliminate the police department, the fire department, and recreate an emergency services department. Or they could enter into a contract with the Oneida County to provide police and fire services. You have to understand that the activities that are the responsibility of the elected council are very different from those of a police and fire commission. So they're not really there to supervise the activities or decide whether these people are doing the job well or these people aren't doing the job well. That's not their job.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. But have we ever had a police fire committee in the past? A fire committee? Public safety.
Yeah. You would have had a public safety committee when you had committee systems. The role of public safety committee would have been to handle those responsibilities, to evaluate the department and talk about the department.
Tom?
I'd like to invite our fire chief for his input and take on this.
I'll allow it.
Thank you. First, one thing is, I've heard you guys mention a want many times here tonight, and this is not a want for us. This is a need for us, and I thought I tried to stress that as much as I could on Tuesday night. I apologize, things went sideways. That was not our intention at all, definitely not my intention. This is a need for the department. If it wasn't a need, we wouldn't be fighting it like we are. We wouldn't be here chirping up all the time with you guys. This is not a want. And the longer that we kick the can down the road on this, the longer we are without that responder. So I ask you to take action on it instead of just setting up another meeting to talk about it again and talk about it again. And then we get down to this point where we still don't have a responder on a truck. The longer we go without it, the longer we're short on manning. It's a need. I promise you that.
Real quick, just to clarify for us too, though, when you say a responder on the truck, and then you also talk about an assistant chief, is the assistant chief the responder on the truck? Because that I think that's the part that some of the confusion comes from is what are those? What exactly are we aiming for? What goal are we aiming for?
Right. So like I mentioned on Tuesday night, it's capability of having that person take a vehicle out if we need it, and to be able to respond. That's an additional person to be able to respond. And it helps us set up that ICS system, as I mentioned. So you have the incident commander, who also is the safety officer, and then you drop down into your operations, or your deputy chiefs can fall into where they need to in the incident command system. You have your driver on the truck, who stays with the truck, who has to run the pump. He cannot leave the truck once that pump is running. You have 3 firefighters, and one hooks up a hydrant, one that pulls a hand line, second on the hand line. We're still missing 2 personnel on RIC crew. So there's ultimately, yes, we're going to need more people. At this time, right now, the short answer is, yes, we need the assistant chief position. The long answer is, yes, we're going to have to look at a referendum at some point in time to add at least 2 people per shift, 6 personnel total. That's not something that I know that we are going to do here within the next year, honestly. And I am trying to be realistic here. But that is something that we do need to look at and prepare for as soon as we can.
What changes like 6 months, 2 years, and asking for a referendum from 3 months? I'm trying to.
I'll ask for it as soon as you let me. It's just a matter of the preparation, the talking that's going to happen, because it's a whole nother process. We're creating new positions, and we have to create pools for that. We have to look at the revenue for it. It's going to be a referendum for increasing the tax levy. It's not something that we can just do, but it's something that we will need to start conversations on.
Tom?
So I liken this situation to earlier in the meeting with Attorney Sorensen. I trust what he says because he's an attorney and knows what he's talking about. It's his job. I trust what our fire chief says. He knows what he's talking about. It's his job. So if he says that an assistant fire chief is an absolute necessity, then I tend to believe him. So I would really like to see by the next meeting, I guess I'll make a motion. I'll make a
I had a good language for a motion, I actually
Sure.
thought, but I'll let you do it if you want.
No, if you got a good language, because I'll probably be set up here and stutter. So
Yeah, I'll take a motion.
My motion is to adjust the organizational chart to include the assistant fire chief and to direct the fire chief to work with city staff to outline the position description.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Lloyd? Absolutely.
I wasn't here last Tuesday night, and I just wanted to share that, when I was a young patrolman, our chief and captain, we could never count on as being there working the road. Public safety is completely different now. As the chief of police, as my captain, we're police officers first. So we're required to do the job as an officer and be available for that. They have the same structure at the fire department. When there's a public safety concern or emergency, they're doing work too. It's not where we used to laugh about the admin, you'd never find them because they're in the office. Things are different because mainly for the police department, our numbers are so, our staffing has been lowered and lowered that we have to be police officers. Even though I'm the chief, my captain, we still have to wear a uniform at times, still have to work patrol, still have to know how to function all the equipment in the car. Because of we don't have the staffing levels that we have to be available and be available to do the job. So that's also, I just wanted to share with you from the perspective of public safety leaders that we also are on the boots on the ground working.
Thank you for that. Before we further discussion, one of the things I'd like to say to council, to chief, to everybody here in the public and watching at home, one of the things I look to do is establish government that didn't have overreach. When I came here, there was a vacuum or a void in certain parts of things, whether they were committees that were failing us, or whether they were alderpersons that took more responsibility than what they should have, or a mayor that maybe did not stand up for that part. And we tried to reestablish that tripod of power, which is basically your administrator, your CEO, and the council to make decisions moving forward. And I just want to warn you of overreaching on those issues when it's something in our ordinance that says he sets the org chart. Now, I'm not saying that he would do it right or any other reason, but that overreach that happens even in small areas can lead to other things. We saw it today when we were talking about turning off the lights. You got to be kidding me. One that should be up to the streets to decide that it's no longer the Christmas season, not somebody asking or anything else. So I really want you to think deep and hard about making a decision that trumps other people's decisions just because. Now, don't get me wrong. I had the listening session, and I had the listening session so I could hear people because I thought we needed to have that conversation out loud. But I also think we have to have the conversation of knowing what we're doing and what our role is. Now, I'm not, once again, I am not doing nothing but representing the public here as a mayor, saying our people deserve to be represented in conversation, and we're having it. I mean, there's no doubt about we're having it. But at the same time, to make sure you don't make those based on this person likes it or that person likes it, because we'll have Christmas lights on until July, like Andrew said. We will have these things, just goofy ass crap because they're asked for it. And I'm not saying you're asking for goofy ass crap. That is not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, as policymakers, understand what you're doing. Further discussion. Tom.
I get what you're saying, and I respect that, but a policy was made. We saw how it goes. It's really hurting the fire department, apparently. I honestly, truly believe that these men and women and the chief would not be here fighting this hard if it wasn't really affecting them in a negative way. I understand about not overreaching as policy makers, but this truly is a policy that we passed, and it's not working. So I don't think it's overreach at all for us to change that policy to where it does work. And that's just my opinion. I don't speak for any of these other alder people, but that's my take on it.
Understood. Gerald?
I'd first like to hear the motion again, and then I have a comment.
Can you read the motion back, please?
I can do it if you don't have it, Teresa. Motion is to adjust the organizational chart to include the assistant fire chief and to direct the fire chief to work with city staff to outline the position description.
Okay, I guess my feeling is that's premature, that I'm probably in favor of restoring that position, but I think we need to talk more first about what we're doing. And that's why the suggestion about a task force or some other kind of thing made sense to me. We've got some groundwork to do before we pass this kind of motion.
Appreciate that. David?
Thank you. I'm going to agree with Tom Barnett's comment, and I was thinking about responding to you myself, but he said it very well. It is a policy decision, and the balance of powers and checks on that are that the council sets policy, others implement that policy, but the direction is there, and the council is also the board that is there to take a measure to respond to the community as well, or to bring forth concerns. And then I want to respond to what Gerald just said. I couldn't disagree more. I think that once we start as a council that's a policy setting and direction setting body, starting to very meticulously get into discussing the details of that, which we have a fire chief who is the expert in the room in terms of defining what that job description ought to be, then we are stepping over that. I think that's our job as the council is to set the course and then let the people who are professionals at what that will look like do their job. I'm not saying that as a counter to Andrew setting up a small group of council members to be part of that, but the idea that we need to somehow delay this, I couldn't disagree more respectfully, sir. Thanks.
Tom?
I think we have to remember that these are guys who run into burning buildings, and if they say they need an assistant fire chief, I'm thinking we got to call the vote here and let's get this done.
Excuse me, so
calling
you
the
call the
vote.
vote? He called the vote, which means we vote without any more conversation, just so you're aware. I'm going to ask you to call roll.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Abstain.
Carrie Mickle.
You already spoke on the topic, so
Yeah,
you're
you
not
can't
allowed
abstain
to
once you
abstain
spoke
at
on the
this
topic.
point. Sorry.
Then I will vote nay.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Ayes have it, the motion carries. I would like to take a moment just to pause and thank the body, thank our administration, thank our attorney, thank our fire chief and our fire personnel for working through what's an extremely hard conversation to move forward as a city in the direction that we as a city see fit. And I do appreciate all the effort, painful and not, argumentative or not, because it's needed to be had. And thank you. That being the case, monthly reports from departments.
Daniel, make a motion to accept the monthly reports from departments as presented.
Holt, second.
Andrew?
Yeah, can we get an update on this sweet brine truck that we got?
Oh. Dan, are you here? No. All right. So no.
I can just share.
Sorry.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Dan obviously had to leave, but we have taken delivery of the truck, and staff are currently going through training on it. We have not put it in service as of yet. There was also a piece of equipment that was missing from delivery on the actual brine application tool, and so that's the item. Once that's received, then it'll be put into service, hopefully before the end of the season. But
I would say it's about done now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I hope you're right.
And actually, I'm gonna steer some eyes towards a part of a department monthly meeting. One is the successes we have with HR is that we are almost fully staffed. As we adjust things, there will be, well, now we have one, but we've done an excellent job that way, and we're doing interviews soon on the clerk and moving forward. So that's excellent, and I appreciate that. On that being the case, we have a motion and a second in front of us. Gerald? Microphone. Yeah, sorry.
That I hope will be on the agenda sometime soon. Updates on various development efforts in town. Some kind of report on the transition at the golf course. And before the snow melts, maybe some further information on how the snow removal is going on Lincoln Street.
Point of order. Shouldn't this be future agenda items?
He's asking for it in reports, but sure. Moving on. I'm going to allow it.
You can't get Dan back to talk about snow removal. So.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. So, motion and second has been had. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have, a motion carries. Closed session, if necessary, to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute Section 19.851G, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibilities in deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting other public business whenever a competitor or bargaining reasons require a closed session. A, discuss litigation in which is or likely to become involved.
Holt, I will make a motion to go into closed session for the above stated purpose.
Barnett, second.
Please call roll.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye.
Take a 2-minute recess and convene. Open session. Are you recording up there? All right. Nothing to report from closed session. Future agenda items. Anything that, Carrie?
I would like, I don't really know how to go about saying this, but I would like on the future agenda items to talk about having an employee drop-in or listening session scheduled on a regular basis so that employees of the city feel that they can talk to council on maybe not such a formal basis, but just discussion.
Okay. Andrew?
Yeah, I would like, I don't know if we ever reached I guess, an end to this, but like crosswalks in the city, it's been going for 4 years now, and I don't know if there's ever been any headroom or headspace or anything on that.
Just a report on our walkability?
Well, just if we still need crosswalks and where and what.
Okay.
Ryan, do you remember those conversations?
Yeah, somewhat. I think.
Like across Kemp Street and.
Right, we have added quite a few, but yeah, I don't know what the plan was. So yeah, sure.
All right. With that.
Oh, I got one more thing.
Oh, sorry.
I did. We had one department head, Jim Gossage, brought the discussion on some compensation for getting called in, and I would like to discuss that at a council level at some point. Maybe not necessarily exactly what it was before, but this Sunday compensation I'd like to discuss. So if we could do that in some way, I would appreciate it.
All right. With that, we are at the end of our agenda. We're adjourned.